Loro Piana makes the most expensive fabric on the earth, but they didn't invent the formula. What they're selling, the obsession, the scarcity, the hierarchy, that's at least 3000 years old. And it started with a decomposing sea snail. So, in ancient Rome, women could legally divorce their husbands, not for abuse, not for betrayal, for a smell, specifically if he became a dyer. And trust me, by the time we get to the why, you'll understand exactly what kind of obsession drives an entire civilization to pass a law like that. Because this isn't just a story about a smell. This is a story about the most powerful color in the human history, Tyrian Purple, and why people lost their absolute minds over it. Hi, I'm Avni, and here we explore the ideas, cultures, and stories that shape the world around us. The Phoenicians didn't call themselves warriors, they didn't call themselves traders, they called their land Land of Purple. That one color was so central to their identity, it became their name. It started around 1200 BC, a dye so secretive that manufacturers took the recipe to their graves. The production details were never written down, never shared, and the color itself was almost supernatural. Every other dye of the ancient world faded, washed out, died. Tyrian purple got brighter with sunlight. The most prized shade wasn't violet, wasn't lilac. It was the color of black tinted clotted blood. Dark, almost threatening. That wasn't a pretty color. It was a powerful one. So, how did even humans discover it? Well, they didn't. A dog did. Legend says Hercules was walking along the beach in Tyre with his dog when the dog bit into a sea snail and came with a purple stained mouth. Hercules showed it to a king. And just like that, an empire was born. Cute story, right? Almost too cute. Because what came after that dog on the beach was one of the most brutal, obsessive, large scale production operations the ancient world had ever seen. To produce just 1.4 grams of dye, you needed 12,000 snails. Not a few, not 100. 12,000. You had to crack them open alive, extract the mucus glands, and leave it to decompose in the sun for days. The smell was so unbearable that ancient Egyptian papyrus literally documents workers complaining about it. The hands of the dyer, one text reads, reek like rotting fish. This noble pigment was the most expensive product in the antiquity, worth more than 3 times its weight in gold, according to a Roman edict issued in 301 AD. Which brings us back to Loro Piana, because the formula hasn't changed that well. The Vicuña is a wild alien animal that cannot be framed, cannot be rushed, cannot be scaled. It has to be caught in the wild, shown carefully, and released once every 3 years. Each animal gives you just 200 grams of wool. And just like the Byzantine Empire's purple, genuine Vicuña is so strictly regulated that every garment comes with a blockchain traceable serial number. Back then, control was enforced through law. Today, it's enforced through a code. You're not buying a coat, you're buying a permit to own one of the world's rarest substances. The ancient dyers needed 12,000 snails for 1.4 grams of dye. Loro Piana needs around 30 wild Vicuña for a single coat. Think about that, 30 animals that cannot be framed, cannot be bred for this purpose, caught one by one in the Andes. The animal changes, the math doesn't. This is the difference between something rare and something made to stay rare. You think you're buying a coat, you're not. You're buying scarcity, the superiority of wearing something nature refuses to scale. Nature sets the limit, and luxury builds its entire identity around that limit. Now, you might be thinking, okay, disgusting process, but why would anyone want a color made from a decomposing snails? That's a fair question though, until you find out what it cost. In modern equivalents, 1 gram of Tyrian purple dye was worth up to $3,000. Ancient historians recorded that it fetched its weight in silver, but the price alone didn't explain the obsession. It was the color itself. Ancient writers were specific, not just any purple. It had to be deep, dark reddish, like coagulated blood tinged with black. And when held up to the light, it shone, like it was alive. That wasn't just a color you wore, it was a statement you made. And so the world built an entire hierarchy around it. Roman magistrates were allowed a toga etched in Tyrian purple. Generals celebrating military triumphs wore solid purple robes with gold thread. By the 4th century AD, the laws tightened so much that only the emperor himself could wear a full Tyrian purple. To wear it without permission was a crime. In the Byzantine Empire, punishable by death. A child born into the reigning emperor was called Porphyrogenitos, born in purple. The color didn't just signal power, it literally defined your place in the world from the moment you entered it. And nobody understood this better than Cleopatra. She was so obsessed with Tyrian Purple that she had the sails of her ship dyed in it. Not her robes, not her curtains, her sails, so that anyone watching her approach from the shore would see that color on the horizon and know exactly who was coming before she ever even arrived. That's not fashion, that's psychology. Here's what's fascinating though. This obsession wasn't just Roman, it wasn't just Egyptian. A Harvard anthropologist discovered in 1909 that Asian Mexican civilizations completely independently on the other side of the world were using the same murex snails, the same exact production methods, and valued the dye above everything else. Same smell, same process, same hierarchy. Two civilizations that never met, arriving at the same exact conclusion about what power looks like. And the workers who actually made Tyrian purple, the dyers, they lived with that smell every single day. It soaked into their skin, their clothes, their homes. It never left. So persuasive, so unbearable, the Talmud specifically granted Jewish women the legal right to divorce any husband who became a dyer after marriage. The most powerful color in the human history, and the people who made it couldn't even afford to wear it. Now, here's the ending I didn't expect when I started researching this. With the fall of the Roman and then the Byzantine Empire, the knowledge of how to make Tyrian purple slowly disappeared. By the 15th century, the recipes were completely lost. For almost 600 years, nobody on the earth knew how to recreate it. Modern chemistry and experimental archaeology have since reconstructed the basic method, but the full ancient technique, that specific shade of black tinted clotted blood, remains commercially dead. We know roughly how it was made, we just can't make it matter the way it did once, because if we could scale it, it would stop being powerful. The moment it became available to everyone, it would become nothing. The man who made this color smelled like a rotting corpse, so the emperor could look like a god. Luxury isn't about comfort, it's about the distance between the person who made it and the person wearing it. Some things were built to be irreplaceable. Loro Piana knows that, the Byzantine Empire knew that, and 3000 years ago, a Phoenician dyer reeking of a rotting fish knew that too. It wasn't just color, it was identity wrapped in control.